All right, well, I guess we'll get started. So how many of you know computer networking?
Not as much as I'd like.
All right, so you all know a little bit. That's a good start.
Evaluations and 2 months closed.
Sure. So the 5 of you, make sure to do the evaluations. All right. So there's a couple things that make a good network: high quality wiring, adequate design, good connectivity. That's a big one. Good quality equipment and organization. I'm sure you all know that. So in wiring, all wires should be neatly wired with. I tend to use Velcro ties, so I can get into them later, and preferably Cat 6 as a minimum. I mean, you can do Cat 5e, but Cat 6 is really the way to go. Data jacks and patch panels make things look pretty, and don't use Cat 5. I have a story here. So as you can see on the upper picture, there's a giant mess. Now, we're not going to talk bad about the person who created that giant mess, but it's all been cleaned up now. And you can see a much better rack design below there. So I will say this was in Rice Lake. And so what we did was when James took over, when you put a video file on his server, his live stream would crash because his entire broadcasting rack was connecting to his network, which was kind of laying on this counter here, through a Cat 5 cable, straight Cat 5. So if he'd transfer a file to it, it'd crash his live stream. That's how because then that one Cat 5 cable was running his live stream, his server, everything on one old Cat 5 cable. So once we rewired everything with Cat 6, made his rack all pretty with patch panels and data jacks throughout the entire building, now we were able to network all the computers together and get a NAS, and he can put stuff on his server without crashing his live stream. So that's where good quality wiring is really important. And then, of course, there's the design. So everything should have a firewall. If you don't have a firewall, you need a firewall. You need something that will serve as your DNS server. It doesn't necessarily have to be a physical server, but you need something that's going to hand out IP addresses. You have to have adequate bandwidth. Depending on what you're doing, you have to have enough. And gigabit switches is really the way you want to go. Never go any less than gigabit. Anything over gigabit is kind of overkill for us at the moment. And on the side here, you can see this is the old WSTO network. We've merged the network into the city network now, but when we were separate, we had Spectrum data modem, which fed into a Netgear wireless router, which served as our firewall and our DNS server. So you can get away with an entire network running through a Netgear wireless router on a charter connection. And we actually had better connectivity than the city network on charter. And then they switched to TDS, and they have much better now. That's why we joined them. And then out of the Netgear servers, where we put another router, another switch, so that we could split that 5 ports of the Netgear out to as many computers as we want, because the Netgear would continue to give out IP addresses. And then we had a printer, 2 editors, our TriCaster, 2 slice encoders for our live streams, Bright Sign, a carousel server, and a Hypercaster. So we had all of that all running from one charter connection and a Netgear wireless router and a Netgear switch. So you can do it without spending a lot of money if you have to. I didn't put the design of the city's network on here because I would need to start on this wall and wrap around to the other wall. So I just gave you a small, nice, easy to do network. You need to have good connectivity. So if you're going to stream video, regular standard definition, you need 5 megabits about of upload. You can get away with less if you reduce the bit rate, but if you want to do a single HD stream at full bit rate, you're going to want 8 megabits per second. Otherwise, you're going to lose frames, and it's going to really not look good. If you're going to do 2, you need about 12. And fiber internet is always the best. It's better than it's more reliable than coax. DSL is just don't even bother. And it's very helpful to have your server on a public IP address, so you can stream to it. You don't have to use all kinds of crazy workarounds, and then you can embed your schedule. So this is actually from our city network, what our city network is doing for speed. And actually at my house I have a faster internet connection than that for no reason. But you know, we have more than the 12 megabits per second for upload. So for equipment, it's a little messy, but because we just put in a Cisco 2960 48 port PoE switch, and that's so that our stuff can talk to the city network, and that is a good switch for computers and that kind of stuff. And off of that, we have a separate switch in our control room that powers all of our PTZ cameras, and that's a Netgear unmanaged gigabit PoE++ switch. So that just the plus provides a certain number of watts of power over Ethernet, and the PoE++ provides even more. So when you turn on your PTZ cameras, they require more power because they do their little movements. Once they're on, it settles down a little bit, but you really want to have that PoE++ if you're going to do PTZ NDI cameras. And it's handy to have it on a, you know, like a power conditioner so you can turn them off. They don't like being on all the time. And if we weren't, so what if we weren't on the city network? You can, like I said, you can do it all with this little wiring diagram here with a Netgear wireless router as your DNS. Network storage. How many of you guys have like a NAS or something for network storage? Pretty much. Do you? You don't have a NAS? All right. Well, you should if you can afford it. They range in price from about $2,000 to $50,000 or more, depending on how big and how much space you want. And you should always have a minimum of RAID 5 protected. Do you know if your NASs are any sort of RAID? Yours is 6? Do you know? You don't know? All right.
I don't have a NAS on the network. It's just, you know, I have the electronics with the backup there with the RAID.
Okay.
But not for the network.
All right.
Not for my network, for the city's network, that's the other person's job. He doesn't have one either.
All right. So with RAID 5, it allows for one drive to fail. So if you have 6 drives, I'm doing all of these at 6 drives except for one of them. If you have 6 drives with 6 terabytes, RAID 5 only allows for 30 terabytes of usable space because it spreads your data out across all the drives redundantly. So if one fails, you can hot swap it and it rebuilds. RAID 6 is better because 2 drives can fail at the same time. But then with that 6 drive setup, you only get 24 terabytes. So the more, you know, it goes down. RAID 0 allows 0 of your drives to fail. And so if you lose one drive, everything that's on that drive is gone forever. But with 6 drives, you get that 36 terabytes, but you have no backup. RAID 1, you can only have 2 drives, but they're mirrored. So if one dies, the other one has everything. So if you had 2 6 terabyte drives, you'd get 6 terabytes of space. And then RAID 10, they say that at least one drive can go bad without losing data. But with 6 drives, 6 terabytes, you're only allowed 18 terabytes of space. Because usually with that, it has a live hot swappable drive. So when one drive fails, the other one just spins up and starts going. So it's your backup on board. And then, of course, your NAS will probably scream at you and beep until you replace the other one. But then you're not at risk of anything else failing. And then there's wiring codes. How many of you know wiring codes for any of this stuff? Because you can't just buy wire from Amazon and run it through the ceiling. I know a lot of people do that. So if you're running through a drop ceiling, like this drop ceiling, you have to have plenum rated wire. If you're running between floors, you have to have riser rated wire. You can use plenum instead of riser to go between floors, but you can't use riser in a plenum space. It has something to do with the chemicals in the shielding that helps prevent them from starting on fire. I've never heard of a data cable starting on fire, ever. But they have these codes. So, and a lot of people say, well, great, let's just do plenum for everything. Well, plenum is significantly more expensive. For 1,000 feet, it's $170 on Amazon right now of plenum, where riser is $100. And if you go with non-riser, like you're going to run it across the floor, it's like $76. So you don't want to use plenum unless you have to, but you can. And then there's two types of wiring connections. There's T568A and B. Everybody uses B, except for AT&T. They use A. I don't know why, but that's the order of the colors inside of each data connection. And you have to pick one. You can't do B on one side and A on the other side, because then your data won't get through. So you have to pick one and do that for everything. Any questions while we're this far? All right. And then there's mobile data. I know a lot of you guys are doing live streams. Sometimes you rely on the venue's data. So you can use USB modems with some of the things like a video. But the A10 minis, they require a physical data connection. When I was in Trempealeau County, we got a PepWave, which you put a cellular card or two in, and then it outputs a physical data line. And it can even pull in Wi-Fi. So if you're in a place that has good Wi-Fi, you don't want to use your data, you can set it up to pull in the Wi-Fi and put it out on the data connection. And again, you still need around the 8 megabits per second of upload to do HD. You can get away with 4G on that, 4G LTE. That usually does around 10 upload if you have good signal. If you do 5G, you can get around 30 in some markets. But this PepWave, I mean, you can use it for other things other than like just going live. It's a hotspot. You can take it somewhere with you. For the conference in October, I took the train from La Crosse to Milwaukee, and I had my PepWave on, and I was working on the train. So you can use it for other things, but you have to have a cellular card or two in it. There's other models like a Cradle Point or Sierra. They're all the same thing. Some are cheaper. So I left a lot of time so that you guys can throw any of your issues that you're having, and we'll see what we can help you with. So does anybody have any questions or issues?
Maybe not like a question, it might be an issue, I'm not sure, but I guess looking at a back room, how do you take time to really, I guess, reorganize things, clean it up, get things out that you should, and make it not a rat's nest back there of a ton of stuff without losing too much downtime between broadcasts and everything?
It works really well to take everything out and do it over.
Sure.
What I did, we actually redid our server rack. What I did was I ran all the new data lines to the server rack, put all the wiring in, then started moving components one by one until I got down to the server and the modulator. And then, so we were only down a couple of minutes because I moved it from one rack to another.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that's one way to minimize your downtime is put another rack in, move your stuff, and then get rid of the old rack.
Sure. Okay. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, our rack is mounted. It's not, movable or anything. So it'd be nice to take it out and do something. So with your network map, can you just, for the city, can you describe the city's network map?
So with our city, we have a TDS connection that comes in on fiber, and then it goes into our firewall. So we have a separate firewall that runs all of our VPNs for everybody that's remoting in. And then from there, it goes onto our network. We have about a dozen virtual servers. 2 of them are domain controllers. So that runs our DNS and our Active Directory. And so when you log in, one of those has to be up in order to log into the network. So you always have 2. So if one's down, people can still log in. Then we have a whole bunch of file servers, print servers, SQL servers. And then from there, that goes into, multiple different switches throughout all of our buildings. We have 8 buildings. Most of them are connected by fiber, But when our city hall moved into the new city hall, they gave us 3 months to get it online and running, and you can't get fiber in 3 months. That's at least a 1 year project. So what we ended up doing is put air fiber up. Has any of you guys heard of air fiber? So it's a point-to-point connection. And with what we bought, we spent $3,000, but it's gigabit speed wirelessly between two buildings. So it's this, it's the same speed as fiber, but it's wireless. And you can put it up in 1 day and it's ready to go. So that's how we connected that building.
What's the cost, or as far as, I guess that could be used as, I mean, you could put it anywhere.
Yep.
Right? So if the city moves a new building, they don't have to lay fiber, they just put that up.
Yep.
What's
Probably
the range?
Line of sight is 20 miles. Non-line of sight is about 8. And our range that we used it for is about 500 feet.
Sure.
So we went way overkill on it, but it works good.
Is Air Fiber the brand, or is that the product?
That's the product. It's by Ubiquity.
Because that's ubiquity.
Yeah, and they have smaller versions that go not as fast and don't support as much bandwidth, but
The ubiquity dishes to get from the football field to the school
I've seen that a lot lately.
works really well. You know, those were $100 dishes.
Yeah.
yeah, so you can do it for really cheap. But we wanted to make sure it was something that would stand up to the weather, and because City Hall is mission critical. You have to have City Hall on the network, or you get phone calls from the mayor, and that
Well, I mean, our phone is, voice over IP, so if internet's down, that's down.
Yep.
Please, they're on a separate network, but in terms of your network map, I'm doing this for a reason, because about, a few months ago, they said, let me back up. Hey, 7 years ago, I got hired as IT/cable operator, right? The actual job description said network administrator, which it's like, can I help you? It's like desktop support, that's what it is, because we have a contractor that's a network administrator. From when I started in 2015 to when I actually was able to reset a email password was 5 years. That's how much information this person gives me, which is little to none. So, because of cybersecurity issues and threats of
ransomware.
Serious stuff, our utilities are saying, hey, we need to really look into this. I said, well, really, the first step is a network map. I don't know where the hell things are, and I've been here 5, 6 years. Oh, okay, well, we're supposed to drop a network map, and I don't even know where things are. So
Start at your data
who
connection.
your network map, was it the vendors?
We did.
You did, okay.
So our vendor works with us very well. If we need anything, he comes down and goes, oh yeah, that's this. We had a hard drive fail in a really old server that we were using to send our backups off-site. And we're like, can we order one of those drives? He's like, oh, they don't make them anymore. But I got a pile of them in my office, like brand new. He had 30 of them in his office, brand new, of something that they stopped manufacturing like 7 years ago. So we're pretty lucky to have our vendor that we do.
Well, do you just have one that oversees everything?
Yep, we have one vendor that oversees everything.
We have, the network admin, we have whoever they use for the wastewater, utilities, security cameras, and everyone goes in the server closet, puts their shit in, and then leaves, and then I redid the wiring. I didn't shut everything down and reorganize it, although that's what I'd like to do. But since I'm not responsible for the network, I don't really feel like a great need to do it. It was over 80 degrees in that closet for over a year when I was staying several times a week. It's too hot in there, the servers shut down a couple times, the contractor didn't think it was an issue, they can run, be that hot. Well, finally got an air conditioning unit and shut down. And
Magically, everything works.
so, just as an example, no, but, so the Ethernet cables between the switch and the router and all that, they're like, I don't know, several 25-foot cables. So it was a cluster, you know, so I bought these thin profile cables that are like 1.5 feet, and then you can actually read the numbers from where they're going to.
Yep. And a lot of times what I'll do is, if I'm patching things in from a patch panel to the switch, I'll label that cable for what it is. So if I have a whole bunch of stuff in all over the place, I have police dispatch, their main computer, labeled on 3 different parts of the 1 foot patch cable.
Yeah, so I have it.
So you put that label on the cable so that you know
Don't unplug this.
it used to be when you accidentally moved it somewhere else.
Or it's like, hey, don't unplug this. If anybody unplugs this, I'm gonna find you. Because then I'll get a phone call, and then I'll have to go figure out why this is all down.
And who are the contractors that both of you are talking about?
So my vendor that we use for everything is JComp.
JCom?
They're based out of Baraboo, but they go everywhere.
And are they're an IT firm that specializes in helping municipalities?
No, they'll help anybody. They have like a contract with the Wilderness in the Dells, so they do like all of the wilderness stuff.
Dave, who is yours?
I can't pronounce his last name. It's out of Sun Prairie, Precision.
Is that the same one that Jefferson used?
Yeah.
And so they specialize in helping municipalities.
He is specialized in helping small municipalities.
And
One person.
and J.
He responds to about 20% of my emails, even when city says that they should help, that you should help me.
Well, I don't, is he still working for the city? Because I thought someone else took over.
No, I think they still use that.
Oh, because when court, that wasn't like, no, moved to Jefferson, she said, no, he's no longer there. I wasn't sure, I thought Barry was someone else. But yeah, I'll ask him a question, and he'll just kind of look at me like, are you stupid asking me a question?
Our vendor, if you ask him a question, he'll explain it to you as far as you want him to explain it. So,
Because he's paid by the hour.
but he only bills like half the time. We'll call him and ask him a question. If we call and ask him a question, usually he doesn't bill us. So only when he's doing a project does he really bill us. Otherwise, we'll get a bill for like $90. But his company is multiple people. So he knows pretty much everything, but if he doesn't know it, he'll call his firewall guy, or he'll call his, server guy that knows everything. We had an incident where a library delivery truck ripped down our fiber connection between our public safety building and our library is the hub that goes out to all the other buildings. And our first thought was, well, who do we call? We don't know anything about this. We've never put up fiber. So we called him, and he said, well, let me call somebody. So he called somebody who called somebody who called somebody who called somebody, and they were a fiber splicer that was working on a project down the road from our city. And we said, hey, can you come and do this? And they'll be like, yeah, I'll be there in an hour. And they had the fiber fixed in probably 2 hours. So everything was down for about 3 hours total by the time we got called in and fixed it. So it helps to know the guy who knows the guy who knows the guy who knows the guy who knows the guy. and so our vendor is the guy we call for everything, and he knows everybody. So
yeah, I'd like to manage things, but I don't have passwords or anything except for 365 to administer part of that.
and we have full control over everything on our network.
Like I said, he's been there for probably ever, and I just don't think there's any, none of the contractors actually really providing what they should, in my opinion. As far as, it's some best practice, you don't leave a closet full of 25-foot Ethernet cables and crap on the floor, and this is a piece of old equipment, I'll just leave it over there in the corner, and the room itself is like 5 feet by 4 feet, so.
Yeah, definitely. And you said you have a security camera vendor. Why don't you just do the security
Yeah, we
cameras?
have security cameras,
Do any of you guys do security cameras for your groups? Yeah? Because we do all of our security cameras in our department.
like monitor, but that's about
We did all the install, everything. Ran wires,
it.
everything.
Yeah, we had a different, well, the police, they have a different contract, because that's the other thing, is the police and city are really, as far as IT completely, like, I'm not told to do. If someone needs help turning on their computer, I'm not supposed to hardly do that. So, more and more over time, I'm able to do more stuff, and after kind of figuring it out, it's better than what it was, but, like I said, there's different contractors for everything, it's like, I don't.
Because we're responsible for 275 security cameras in our city, buildings and parks. And if you don't have any anywhere, it's a good thing to try to say to your city, hey, we can do this, because a lot of the times it's just a data connection. I mean, how many of you can make a data cable? Yeah, they're not overly complicated. They're not fun, but you can do them. That's all it really is data cables and a camera. You all know cameras. It's pretty much the same thing. It's IP cameras are the same as NDI cameras. Some coax, I mean, if you can make a B and C end, you can do a coax camera. So that's how we started. When I started, our city had 8 security cameras, and we've done all of them. Because it was cheaper for us to do them than to hire a contractor. Then we have complete control over what we have. All of our DVRs in all of our buildings are the same brand, same software. All of our parks are the same DVRs. So now we have the police trained where they go to a park to pull footage from a vandalism, and they know what to bring, and they do it themselves. We don't even go out there.
Yeah, we just had a park restroom vandalized, and people on Facebook say, well, don't you have cameras, security cameras? And then, just real quick, if I can remember. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I've got 2 questions, and they're both kind of almost the same kind of question. Well, you said you were using a Netgear router for your PTZ cameras. PTZ.
Yep.
Is it talking to the city Cisco cameras?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So those 2 are connected?
Yep. Now they are. They didn't used to be, because we didn't used to be on the city network. So on the network map that I showed here, we had our Spectrum data to our Spectrum modem, and then that went into our wireless router to give everything IP addresses. Then it went to a Netgear switch, and then for our control room, we had a second Netgear switch that we could turn on and off. So initially it wasn't. So if you're separate from your city network, you can still do it. It'll still hand out IP addresses to those cameras. As long as you have something like a wireless router that will hand out IP addresses, like through DNS, you're good.
Similar question, may have the same answer. When you're talking about the ATM, the Black Panther box, for mobile data, thinking specifically about the box I was demonstrating yesterday, could I have gotten a Wi-Fi extender that would allow it to be given a DNS address that I could plug in? So that would be something I could plug the 810 switcher into, so I could go really wirelessly in a location as opposed to having to be wired.
Yep. With this,
I have to be 100 feet of a port to get a whole on our cable.
with this PEP wave, you can be anywhere. So as long as there's cellular,
Yeah.
and with this, you can use cellular anywhere, but it can also pull in Wi-Fi. It has an interface that you can run on your laptop to say, pull these wireless networks. So if you're in the same place over and over and you know the Wi-Fi is good, you can have it save that, and it'll check for that first, make sure it's the best, and if it's not, it'll switch to your cellular. It'll check your first cellular card and go, is this good? And if it goes no, it'll check your next one. So you can have it flow through to make sure it works well.
But I would also say, in your situation, if you were in an area where you knew the Wi-Fi was good, you can get a Wi-Fi bridge that doesn't have the cellular part. It would be much cheaper and cheaper to operate. That would power your ATEM with a wired connection. If you were within that area that had good Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's something I could, because I was just primarily for the community cruises to check out.
Oh,
And so then
they would sell you.
right now we're saying, you have to have a jack. But yeah, something cellular, but then we have to take it another way.
and like this would work with a TriCaster too. So if people have like a mobile rig with a TriCaster, or I think Sling Studio does Wi-Fi, so that's. But like if you have a TC1 in a mobile rig, that has no built-in Wi-Fi. This can pull in Wi-Fi and send it out, and have backup cellular.
Okay, help us justify the expense. So where could this be used, unrelated to video with, let's say, other departments?
Graduations would be a perfect one for schools. I feel like that's where.
Press conferences.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sports.
Before we started going with streaming, we had a coax network throughout our city, and we could only go live from those spots. With a PepWave, we can go live from anywhere and not have to rely on charters connections, and you don't have to rely on the high school being nice enough to give you their Wi-Fi. Because our high school, when we said, "Hey, can we use your network?" they said, "No. Figure it out. That's your problem." So, something like this. There's multiple versions. There's different technologies that you can use. This one's the one I'm familiar with because that's what we got. But I mean, if they're doing like a library program in the park, you could use this to stream it as a COVID social distancing thing. You could use it for a laptop while you're out doing something. You could set up, say your entire city network goes down, but everything's cloud based. You could unplug your data connection from your probably charter. You could unplug your charter, plug it into this PepWave. It'll be slower, but it'll work. You'll be able to get people back up and running slowly, but it could be used for that.
Okay.
So
That's definitely a selling point.
so when you're out and about, you can use it. And oh crap, the network went down.
Yeah, charter's not 299. I think they're 987 or whatever the reliability is.
2%.
Multiple times in the past week.
Just hope TDS gets to where you are.
Yeah.
Are your cellular costs a lot?
No, because we're a city, so we get government rate. Some of you are separate from your city, but for city, you can get in Wisconsin, you can get unlimited, unthrottled data from Verizon, U.S. Cellular, or AT&T for about $42 a month. Unlimited, unthrottled. As long as you say you want it through the state contracts. If you just go there and say, I want this, then they'll give you the business one. No, you want the government one.
So public safety, oftentimes is higher priority. Do you get on that network, or are you just on with the truck?
So now with FirstNet for sure, if you can justify it to be on the core network, like this PepWave is for emergency communications in the field, you can get on tier 1. But now they have a tier 2, which is general government services, that still ranks you above business and residential customers. So if you're streaming an emergency press conference and everybody else is out there with their iPhone streaming it and you require more data, it starts kicking them off. And that's through FirstNet. And FirstNet's built on the AT&T platform, so you get 5G on FirstNet. But again, that's a government thing. So,
Derek, how many IT staff are there for shift?
there's 3 people in our entire department, and we run all of the city network and the cable channel. So,
How many end users do you support?
we have roughly 260 physical devices, be it computers, DVRs, servers, iPhones, or no, we have more cell phones than that. We have like 260 physical end devices plugged in.
How many security cameras is that?
275. Yeah, we're busy.
Yeah. What's that?
500 connections you're talking about.
What?
You've got 500 connections that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm so struck how different cities can be in terms of their IT management, as well as how, the community television stations get managed. I mean, Stoughton is 13,000 population.
Yep.
Jefferson is just over 7, half the size. They have no IT person. Right? And Lake Mills is,
Well, it's all,
you're
rely on
4,000 or 5,000 people.
Yeah, like 5 or something, but
Okay, but they've got you, so
Right.
they've got a whole plan.
Well, here's the deal. This is why I don't think, like you said, the city governments don't understand. They will as soon as they get hit with something. 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, yeah, probably 4 years now. Of course, everyone in the office has Windows 7, computers, laptops, everything. These people had Windows XP. I had Windows XP until I got rid of it. So I said, Windows 7 is going to expire here in a couple years or whatever, 3 years. And, we have like 80 computers that probably need to be replaced. And I talked to the network administrator and he goes, yeah, we can probably start doing it. He wasn't really worried about it. I told the city manager, it's like, well, do you want to buy 80 computers all at once, or do you want to buy like 20 at a time? So, got on a replacement schedule. This IT administrator, he just recently bought 1 or 2 new computers, like 6 months earlier. He got Windows 10, but he got Windows 7. Because his rationale was, well, if it ain't fixed, don't broke it. If I do Windows 10, it may affect some program of the city running WPTI or whatever, right? So, okay, that's a good lazy attitude, I guess. But, we got to, upgrade that. So, what happened is after 3 years, I had a list. We put together a replacement schedule, and all the computers are Windows 10. Now we're coming up on
End of life on that.
Yeah, so now it's like, okay, can we upgrade what we have to Windows, replacement or whatever?
And what we do at the city is we try to keep all of our main computers on a 3-year replacement cycle, because all of our computers come with a 3-year warranty.
Yeah.
So as that warranty comes up, that computer goes away or goes to a less mission critical spot, like the public kiosks in the senior center, or the computer that they use only during tax time. So it's like we try to keep everything on a 3-year cycle. And one of the things you brought up was the risk of attacks. So the city is actually about ready to buy onto, how they always say you can't fix stupid, right? So you have your firewall to keep people out of your network. You have the antivirus on your computer to keep people out of your computer. But what if somebody clicks that link? That invites in ransomware. So, what?
Dark trace?
Yeah, well, we're going with a software called Bullwall. What happens is somebody clicks that link, it downloads ransomware. It's watching for encryption. If it starts seeing encryption, it only takes half a second for it to realize that there's a ransomware attack. And what it does is it shuts the computer down, deactivates the computer from the domain, deactivates the user. You cannot get that computer back on without going in and manually telling the software, this computer's okay now. And if you have a computer with it on in your IT department or whatever, it'll start screaming at you and flashing red, and it sets off sirens. And so if somebody clicks that link, it takes half a second for it to kick them off. So you can fix stupid in that situation.
I don't know. I got a story.
Go for it.
Someone had a browser hijack, where it comes up, big red screen, warning, I don't know. Well, she called the number.
Oh, no.
And then she didn't talk to him, I don't think, for very long, because it was somewhere where it wasn't here in the States. And she comes running to me, and I said, well, did he tell him anything? What did you? No, I hung up after, I thought it wasn't the right thing to do. It's like, okay, let's
First
go route.
6 of our credit card.
Okay, so, no credit card. But, that's what I would think, why would anyone do that? But guess what?
But they do it.
Do it, yeah.
And one of the things that we did for at least the public computers that they use is we put them in kiosk mode, where when you put a computer that public people can use in kiosk mode, it says, all right, what app do you want them to use? They get that one app. We said Edge because it wouldn't let us do Chrome. With Edge, it's in private mode. If they walk away for 15 minutes, it resets it. If they close it, it opens up again, reset. So if in that instance, if somebody from the public called the number and they were like, oh, well, let me remote into your computer, they'd close Edge, it'd pop back up. They'd close Edge, it'd pop back up. They can't do anything. So for anything, with some city staff, you can't do that, but with public computers, you can make it so they can't touch anything. Because kiosk mode is my new friend. We've started putting it everywhere.
Zero trust,
Uh,
as far as password, zero trust policy. I looked, and I forgot the name of the company, but there's one company that's certified by the feds that would, you could use them for city government, state government, whatever, something keeper, whatever.
oh, Password Keeper?
What was it?
Password Keeper?
I don't think it was that, but anyway, there is a password management company that is certified for government, so is that something that you have or you look at, or?
We don't. We are considering two-factor authentication, though. So when you log in, your phone goes ping. Are you sure you're logging into your own computer? Yes. We're looking into that. It's expensive, and we're not sure if people will go for it because not everybody has a city phone.
Oh, sure.
I think it works really well. We have dual mobile for doing that, and it'll come like on any phone. It'll come on my personal phone or
Anything you're logged into that account on?
yeah.
Yep.
And then like you get a new phone, then you have to redo it. So I have to say, hey, I got a new phone. Can you let me in again? But I can do that from anywhere.
Right.
Anywhere I got.
Our problem is there's a lot of people that don't want to do anything. We put Office 2021 on somebody's computer, and they were lost. They had 2016. It's not that much different. Oh, no, it's completely different. This button is here. But it's there. People are scared of change, and sometimes you just have to...
I feel your pain.
And sometimes it's like, hey, your computer can upgrade to Windows 10. Yeah, but I don't want to. Okay, click. It's going.
Yeah, I think you just tell them this is what we're doing now. This is how it works.
Yeah.
And just
It's hard to tell the mayor that, though. Because we don't have a city administrator or a city manager. Our mayor is our city manager. It's a full-time position, and it's elected every 4 years. So you can't really say to the guy in charge, no, this is what we're doing. Because he'll go, nah. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. But, yeah. Anything else? How much time do we have left? Are we coming up on...
Minutes?
That's not bad.
I got something to show you after you're done. Not sure what you need to do.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions or want any ideas on anything? Awesome.
How much do you recommend, sorry. Do you recommend isolating sections of your area? And I know in other places I've worked, which has been 8 years, so it's been a while, but we kept like our master control operations, the cable channel, on its own little mini network separate from everything else, just to make sure that it would be secure and you couldn't hack into it.
It depends on the quality of the stuff you have. So if you have multiple networks but you're using poor quality stuff for all of them, it'd make more sense to have higher quality stuff and maybe have different VLANs, which will separate it. So like our city hall is on a separate VLAN than the rest of our network because we trust them less. That's where we have elected officials that work and that kind of stuff, where The rest of our buildings are, police, fire, EMS. We trust them a little more because they'll get an email that says encrypted by Zix, which is reputable encryption company, and they'll say, "Is this a virus?" No, it says Dane County sent you an encrypted message. It's from Dane County. Did you call them? Yeah, they said it was from them, but I don't trust it. You called Dane County, so they're like super over protective. Where at City Hall, it's like, oh, my password expired in a random email from, like it@cityof.com. Yeah, I trust that. So we try to segregate people we trust from people we don't.
That's how Henry got hacked. John Best responded to an email like that and changed his password from the email. But he called IT first, and the IT person said, go to the site and change your password. Yeah, so did it from the email. Guess what?
And if you ever see anybody that calls that number that he was talking about, where Microsoft tells you, hey, your computer's locked out, call us. First thing you do, unplug it from the network. First thing. Don't let it encrypt anything. Just yank it out and beat the person with a stick. All right. I think we're good. Don't forget your evaluations forms and give them to the folder. And thank you.
What was the price of your,
F-Wave?
yeah, Westby?
It was $800.
Oh,
It's not cheap, but it's not expensive. I could see our community partners, people, community partners were doing the access. So that was community partners folks who are doing live things for us, using something like that a lot.
And like with
I
your
don't see us necessarily sending it out with
with your box, you could mount it inside the box
yeah.
and have places to just screw in the antennas, and then it's just always there. It can pull in Wi-Fi. It can pull in.
We could connect it in if it's our people using it, or we could leave it off if it's the community crews using it, let them take care of their own data
Yep.
for that part of it. But they're talking about doing parades and things like that. Where are you going to get the? You're not getting the connection to the park is going to be.
It's and with the Metwave, it's totally doable.
Yeah.
When I was in Trempealeau County is a rural, hilly valley mess.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we were able to go live from all kinds of places.
Well, I'm thinking if the Chamber of Commerce, like, gets sponsors for a parade, like grocery store or whatever, thanks. Maybe it's like, hey, if you want to sponsor us to go live, pay some extra money, and we'll put your name, that would help buy the.
Yeah.
Can I show you something real quick?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I don't know if I asked you about this or not. This happened like, I'll tell you right now how long. There's 70 some of these emails. Yeah, at first I just disregarded it, but it's like, I've never gotten one before. It started March 3rd, and I sent a couple to the demonstrator, he responded and say, look at the header. Okay. I looked at the header, I couldn't figure it out. So, well, let me back up. Go ahead and sit down. So, they're all the same. This is 365. But it comes straight to me in my email.
Oh yeah. So
But it's like 3, 4, 5 times a day. I just got 3 or 4 in here.
I would say probably what it is somebody spoofing your email. So as it goes out and it goes, oh no, that address isn't right, it's bouncing back saying, because it thinks it's you. So it's just somebody spoofing your email and setting stuff up.
Spoofing my email, but not the city's.
They're not like hacking anything.
Right.
So, do you have an email address that's a postmaster?
No.
Does that forward to you? Probably you are, because you're like are you the like fallback account?
Well, you know, I do have admin, rights.
Because to me, this looks like, you can create a catch-all account, and you
Oh,
say, Dave Grumman is a
okay.
catch-all. So 70 fake emails went out pretending to be somebody in your network, or
Right.
not even somebody.
Oh, I see, right. Even though, well, it says, say it was.
The sender was Postmaster, right?
Yeah.
So let's see, you probably have another one.
I think they're all.
So what's happening is it's saying, it's detecting, that's detecting a fake DHL ship notification. See, we use a Barracuda email filtering system that also does our encryption and archiving. And it blocks DHL stuff like that.
Okay.
Because we block probably 170 of those a day.
Oh, wow.
I'm coming in.
Well, some were in, Mandarin Chinese or something, because,
Yeah.
so it's just kind of weird, like I said, it started March, so.
Yeah, we've been getting a ton of them since March too.